with Adam the Bull. What am I doing? Zach, I'm so out of it after last
Good
night's
Lord.
game. It's not that Zach's shaking his head like I'm like a robot here. I might as well be reading off a teleprompter, which doesn't exist. I got a new camera. I'm out of sorts. The picture looks weird to me, even though everybody's saying the picture looks better. This is
the ultimate Cleveland sports show. No,
not that either. I'm doing too many shows now at this point. The Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show, along with Zach Meisel. I'm Adam the Bull, and we do have plenty of Guardians talk. I'm not talking about the Cavs, Zach. I don't want to talk about the Cavs right now. I'm not talking about. I'm not going to be one of these insane Browns beat reporters that are charting and breaking down every pass that guys throw in shorts against no defense. I mean, we have lost our collective minds here, have we not? With what's going on with some of this coverage?
Sure. This is the 80-39 halftime score of show openings here.
This is the Colorado Rockies of show open. So let's hit the open. Maybe that'll straighten us out. The Guardians, who as usual are, having a pretty good season as they do almost every year, but they just poured salt on the wounds last night. As with everything else going wrong with the Cavs, the Guardians get blanked by the Phillies, and Kyle Schwarber, one of the most hated baseball players in Cleveland, hits 2 home runs. So it was a bad ending to what had been a good start to the week. The Guardians lost their first game in the Nats, but then they won 3 in a row, 2 over the Nats, and beat the Phillies in the first game. The bats were cooking, but that went away the last couple of games, Zach, as the Phillies pitching dominated the Guardians.
Yeah, I imagine there were many Clevelanders on Sunday night who were thinking, all right, got my 2 teams on national TV. Here we go. Guardians are on first. Let's turn it on. And then Kyle Schwarber hits a home run. And you're thinking, all right, enough of this. I know Joe Buck's not on the call here, but I saw enough of this in 2016. Let me flip over to the Cavs. And then you watch that first half and you're like, oh my God, this can't get worse. Let me flip back to the Guardians. And then Schwarber hits another home run. And I think everyone wanted to just go to bed at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. The only saving grace for the last 2 days is that even though the Guardians couldn't hit to save their lives, they did pitch pretty well. Tanner Bibee on Saturday went 7 innings, gave up just 1 run on 5 hits, no walks. He did have only 3 strikeouts. And then Luis Ortiz yesterday, besides the Schwarber home run, was fantastic. He goes 6 innings, gave up just that 1 run, 4 hits, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts. So the positive I'm going to take out of the last 2 days, and overall the last trip through the rotation outside of Logan Allen, is that the pitching's been better. Gavin Williams pitched well Friday night. So the starting pitching, which has been obviously inconsistent at best so far this year, pretty good trip around, including by the 2 best guys in Bibee and Williams.
Yeah, I think we said it last week where I think the good thing about this team, we couldn't quite figure out, like, how are they 23 and 17, 15, whatever they've been throughout the week. Mm-hmm. And a big thing was when the starting pitching was not going well, you had the bullpen step up, or you had a couple hitters carry the offense. And I think with a lot of young players and a lot of guys who we just don't quite know what they're going to be, if they're guys you want to keep around long term, you're going to get those ebbs and flows. And I think we're seeing another one here with the lineup just producing nothing the last couple days. But the rotation, you've been waiting on Bibee and Williams and Ortiz to show some consistency. And I don't want to say that Williams is doing that yet, but I think Bibee and Ortiz have been better. And you're starting to see, I think this weekend was a good example of like what those 3 guys could be, especially when, Ben Lively has just been super consistent all season. So yeah, I maybe the rotation gets on a little roll here and carries you while the offense gets sorted out. But I think there's just going to be a lot of that as the season goes on, where it's one phase of the roster isn't up to snuff, and so you're going to need another phase to carry you.
I know it's you can't really do this, but I'll do it anyway. Tanner Bibee obviously got destroyed his second start of the year against the Angels, he gave up 7 runs in 4 innings, and then he got smoked again 2 starts after that against the Orioles, where he gave up 6 runs in 5 2/3. In his other 6 starts this year, he's given up 6 earned runs in 36 1/3 innings, which obviously is an ERA under 2. Can we look at those 2 starts, both earlier in the season, starts 2 and 4 of the season, as anomalies? Because he has pitched, for the most part, very well besides those 2 starts. Now, those 2 are particularly bad, but.
Yeah, the big thing to me is he's getting deeper into games. I mean, he's gone 7 innings, 2 of the last 3, and the one he didn't, he left early because he was cramping up. So I think that's the big thing is I don't want to make too much of the fact that he's not really striking guys out, because I think it's an intentional priority here to go deeper in games and be more efficient. And so not always chasing the strikeout and inflating that pitch count, and then you're going 5 1/3 and leaving a lot of stress on your bullpen. So, if you look, like, his season high in strikeouts is 5.
It's weird.
But as you look, his 3 of his 4 longest outings, or his 3 longest outings, are all in his last 4 starts. And I don't think that's an accident. I think this is a guy who wants to be able to go 7 innings on 95 pitches every time out. And sometimes that means you have to pitch to contact a little bit, especially with guys who aren't threats. Like, do you need to be chasing a strikeout against a number 9 hitter who,
No.
You don't have to worry about hitting over the fence? So I think there's some of that. I think it's important to the 2 bad starts you mentioned. Gave up a combined 7 home runs in those 2 starts. In the other 6 starts, he's given up a combined 2 home runs. So, I think this is a guy who is still sort of trying to figure out who he is. Remember Shane Bieber after the Cy Young season? He came back the next year and looked like a guy who was still trying to strike out 250 hitters, and ended up getting hurt. And he came back in 22, and he had a great year, 200 innings, and was the ace of that staff. But it was different. He wasn't quite striking out as many guys, and then the year after that, even more so. And I think you age, and you have to adapt a little bit, and you have to find new ways to get guys out. And I think being economical and being smart about your pitch count and your workload, I think that can pay a lot of dividends, not just for you, but for the bullpen too. I mean, it's very obvious this team does not want to overwork Cade Smith and Emmanuel Clase and Hunter Gaddis. So anything you can do to help those guys too, I think is beneficial.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yes, sometimes it's a concern when guys are not getting strikeouts, but like you said, I don't think that's the case here. I think this is more, and maybe we'll see this with Williams a little bit too, who's still getting the strikeouts, but it's more of a level of development, right? He's learning, I got to be able to do more. I've got to be able to go longer. If that means pitching to contact for a defense that has traditionally been very good, not quite as good this year, but traditionally been very good, then do so. And like you said, especially against hitters that are unlikely to do home run damage, that's when it's smart. When you're facing the bottom of the lineup, guys who are not hitting home runs, pitch to contact and be more efficient. The strikeouts are great, but if you get guys out quickly, which is something that Emmanuel Clase generally has been very good at, then because his strikeout numbers, while have always been good, have not been quite as good as we would have thought with the stuff he has, but he's been generally very economical, and that helps him. That helps any pitcher.
And I think with Bibee, there's a lot of still trying to figure out maybe which pitches to use when, and what he can lean on, and what's working on a particular day. Like, the stuff is fine. The velocity is exactly where it was last season. So it's not like, I don't think you're not worried about like an injury. You're not worried about just a loss of like talent or stuff. It is weird. Like his chase rate is super low. His whiff rate, obviously the strikeout rate is way down.
Right.
So I think it's just a matter of, see if it trends in the right direction as the season goes on. And more so, can you get the strikeout when you need it? If you're facing a tough hitter in a
Right.
big jam, can you get that strikeout? And instead of just using it as a crutch, use it as a tool. And I think, it's just something to monitor as the season goes on. But if he can prove to be effective and be efficient and pitch deep into games, that's the best case scenario.
Meanwhile, a guy who's got a great whiff percentage is Luis Ortiz, and we talked about him a little bit already. Since his third start this year, now he's had even his first two starts weren't great, and since then he's been a little up and down, obviously. And his last start he gave up 4 runs, and he had another start where he gave up a lot of runs. But in since his third start, which was on April 12th, he's pitched 32 2/3 innings and has 44 strikeouts, which is an eye-opening number. I mean, that's like around 12 strikeouts per 9, which is really outstanding.
It seems like with him, you can tell like when it's going to be good. Like you can tell early. It's either this dude's going to labor through like 4 1/3 innings and throw 95 pitches and it's going to take forever and it's going to be miserable to watch, or like he's electric. And yeah, he's, you said it, like he had the stinker against the Yankees. He did not pitch well against the Nats.
Yeah.
That first start was not good in San Diego, but when he's good, he's really good.
Yeah.
And the question is just how can you be really good 4 out of every 5 times instead of 3 or, half the time.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what they're working through. But I would say certainly after the spring training he had and the first start he had, you have to be pleased with the progress. And you're also seeing like a different guy. And I think this is why patience is important with him. When the Guardians target a pitcher, they're not just looking at his numbers with the Pirates last year and saying, oh, this guy had a really good year. Like, let's go get him.
Yeah.
They're identifying things they like about him. And he wasn't striking out guys like this last year with Pittsburgh. So they envision this pitcher, and it's not necessarily the guy that we saw last season. So he clearly is working towards something. You're seeing the effects of whatever they saw because he's got this strikeout rate that is brand new. The stuff, he's hitting 98 miles an hour all the time, and like the stuff is there. So I think patience is important with him. I think, again, like you've seen him carve up some decent lineups here. Like that Phillies lineup is tough, and he looked really good.
And again, like when you talk about there's different expectations. My expectations for Gavin Williams are significantly higher than Luis Ortiz. So Luis Ortiz, while there's been some inconsistency, especially in his last, again, since that first start, there's been a lot more good than bad. Right now, he's their third or fourth starter. Maybe at some point he's their fourth or fifth, depending on when Shane Bieber is ready to go. But if you're getting this kind of production, certainly if he ends up being their fourth starter, like let's say in theory he's their fourth starter in the playoffs, I mean, you're not going to get a better fourth starter on many teams. Maybe the Mariners if they're healthy, maybe the Dodgers if they're healthy, but there's not many teams that will have a more talented pitcher in their 4 spot. So I don't expect him to be great every start, but like you said, if 3 out of every 4, 4 out of every 5, if he's keeping you in the game and getting those strikeouts, that's it. And then it's the responsibility of the guys higher up in the rotation to be even more consistent than that.
And a lot of it is just beating yourself. I mean, he's Gavin Williams. It's like sometimes you just want to go to the mound and shake the guy and just say, throw strikes.
Yeah.
And with Ortiz, I think you could see like those clunkers that he's had. That's when he's walking 4 or 5 guys. Last night he had 2 in 6 innings. He pitched really well against Minnesota a couple weeks ago. 2 walks in 6 1/3. So there's still strides to make too. Like you'd even like to get that down a little bit.
Oh, sure.
But then Gavin Williams, his last 2 starts, 9 innings, or his last 3 starts, 11 innings, 11 walks. Like that's not a recipe for success, and that's why it takes 100 pitches to get through 4 innings in Toronto, 98 pitches to get through 5 scoreless against the Phillies. So it's, these guys are working through it. I think Williams' start Friday night was kind of a good, like, embodiment of how the season's gone as a whole for the Guardians, where it's like, yeah, it worked. 5 scoreless.
Yeah.
Not sure how he kept them scoreless since gave up 4 hits and walked 4 against a good lineup, but you'll take it. And it's just trying to get better from there.
Yeah, the strikeouts in his case were obviously helped him get out of some of those jams. As for the offense this weekend, they scored, was it 6 on Friday? And then obviously only 1 run over the weekend. Jose Ramirez has been struggling, he didn't do anything yesterday, but hit the home run on Friday, had a couple of hits on Saturday and a stolen base. How do you feel about Jose right now? Because obviously he'd been scuffling. I'd like to see how he does this week against Milwaukee, but how you feeling about him at the moment?
I mean, he's hitting 286. His OPS is over 800. I think for him, a big thing is, and he'd never admit this. I always wonder if he feels pressured to just be a superhero because he doesn't have much help in that lineup. And that's not just this year.
Yeah.
I've felt that in times past. The guy has such a good knack for knowing what's a strike and what's not.
Oh, yeah.
And how many times have you seen him where you're probably, you're watching on TV and you're like, just don't swing at it. Take your walk. But he, for whatever reason, he's lunging at a pitch out of the zone that he knows is not a strike, but maybe he feels like he has to hit one out or hit one into the gap. I think he's done a better job lately of being patient, drawing walks, and also taking like a single when it's there, instead of just trying to crush something for extra bases. So I feel like his at-bats just overall have looked a lot better over the last week or so, and we can nitpick the hell out of this guy, but odds are at the end of the season, he's going to wind up with numbers that look like they always do. And even a week ago, we were saying like, this guy's not been great, especially by his standards. And you wake up and, he's got 4 multi-hit games in his last 8 games. So that tells you pretty much what you need to know.
It's funny. You're talking about Jose. We know he's their best player. Kyle Manzardo, has 9 home runs on the year. We would have all signed for that. But there are some, it's weird against right-handed pitching. He's got an OPS of 632 and he's hitting a .182, the batting average down to 208. I know we don't get caught up in that. And obviously Kyle Manzardo's going nowhere, but there's been a lot of like feast or famine with Kyle Manzardo. It's like home run or not much else.
Yeah. It's his first year in the bit. Like it's his first full season, first time playing every day, first time like with the pressure of, hey, like you're expected to be someone who delivers for us. And if Carlos Santana was putting up big numbers, I don't think anyone would care what Manzardo was doing, good or bad. This lineup just doesn't have it. It's full of holes. It's full of guys who either like, maybe they've been unlucky and you're waiting for them to break through, or you're just not seeing it, or they're just so hot and cold. Like, how many guys can you truly count on where you truly, like, you say, you know what? There's a better chance than not that this guy is going to have at least a really good at bat here. 2? I mean, it's rough. You need like that oasis in DC during the week where they were just putting up big inning after big inning. Like was not the norm. Like it's tough. Like they just don't have enough consistent guys. That's how Daniel Schneemann gets hot and winds up hitting second. And they just don't have. They've had very few instances of, Arias has had a few stretches where he's been going really well. Obviously, Quan and Ramirez, you trust implicitly. Manzardo's had the power stroke at certain times, but he's had some really cold stretches. And that's it. I mean, they've gotten so little from catcher and first base, and certainly right field, shortstop. Angel Martinez has been pretty solid in center field, but like that, there's not much there.
Is there any? You think the Guardians are considering calling up CJ Kayfus? I mean, he obviously played great at Akron. He got called up to Columbus. He's got over a 900 OPS there.
Where are you playing him?
He split time between first base and right field in Columbus. I mean,
he's got like a handful of games in right field.
Yeah.
When that handful becomes 40, then I think it's more realistic.
Yeah, he's played, let's see, he's played 5 games in Columbus and 5 in right field, 5 at first base. In Akron before that, he had only played 3 games in the outfield. He had played 11 at first base. So he's got 8 games in the outfield. Obviously, they're doing that more because they think he could help because he's hit really well.
Correct.
And
he'll certainly be part of this conversation next season.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me to see him just replace Santana.
Yeah.
They've got a mess on their hands. I mean, Santana and Manzardo, and the fact that Manzardo's hit lefties when Santana was supposed to be the guy who was going to hit lefties complicates it a little bit more. But you're going to get David Fry back in a month.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how he fits. And then the right field picture kind of factors into this a little bit because, are you ever, I don't know what you're going to do with Jones and Noel if they don't get on track. You've got DeLauder coming back soon. Yep. Kafis obviously can be part of this.
Yeah.
Lane Thomas coming back.
Yeah. And you got to,
who does he take at bats from?
Right. And it's complicated because there's it's like we're naming so many guys, yet nobody is hitting. And you got to keep trying different things until it works. And, you really want to get, we were excited when the Guardians reacquired Nolan Jones. And obviously he's not produced. We know what the analytics are, but the bottom line, he hasn't produced with any consistency. And so other guys are going to eventually get opportunities if he doesn't turn it around. And
the toughest, he's out of options. That's the toughest thing. You could send him to AAA and call up whoever you want. Will Brennan even. And it would, but I don't know what I don't understand, I guess, why the all the great, it's not even just the hard hit rate, but the guy's been great at drawing walks and not chasing pitches. And so it's weird that it hasn't translated, but it hasn't. And, it's been a month and a half and he's gotten more opportunities than Noel. And Noel it's been really rough for him too. But clearly this isn't working. And so you're going to have to change something at some point. And, whatever you wind up doing, there's going to be consequences to that. When Lane Thomas comes back in a week or so, do you put him in right field some and keep Martinez in center? Martinez deserves to keep playing. He's done a nice job. So, it's
or if Schneeman cools off, do you put Martinez at second, Lane Thomas at center, send Rocchio down to the minors? It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of different options and none of them are obvious because no one is hitting.
Right. All right, let me talk to the folks about Monarch Money. If ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Zach, in terms of the injuries, we talked a little bit about it. What are the latest so Lane Thomas, he said, it looks like he might start a rehab assignment this week, possibly, right? Maybe back.
Yeah, he should.
And what about, you mentioned DeLauder. What's the latest with him?
Yeah, he was playing games in Arizona, and so he'll be sent to, I don't know if maybe they would just send him right to AAA and he'd rehab there. And it's not like he'll finish his rehab and then get called up right away. But they can see where he's at. You got to let that guy play. I mean, he didn't really have spring training and he's never healthy anyway, but just the fact that he's healthy, he's going to be an option at some point this summer. So, and they haven't shied away from thinking like they've come out and said it, he's going to be part of this equation.
Yeah.
And maybe because he's always injured, you don't want to waste what
Sure.
at bats he has at
Yeah.
AAA. So yeah, he could be an option at some point in
Who
July or
knows?
something.
As depressing as talking about the Guardians hitting could be, and I'm going to be a little rosy here. I'm going to say, like, there's a world, let's say by next summer. I know people don't want to really hear that, but I'm going to do it anyway. By next summer, where you could have Manzardo and Kafis between first base and DH. If Arias continues to play this well, if oh my God, I'm going to brain freeze. Anyway, I'll get Angel Martinez continues to play. Well, forget Angel Martinez. You could have Bazan at second. You could have Arias at short, Jose at third, Kwan in left, DeLauder in right. The potential of that group, we'll see at center. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe Angel Martinez. I don't know. Catcher also, the way Bo Naylor's been.
Cooper Ingle. Good hitting prospect.
By next year, by next summer?
Maybe. Yeah, he's at Double-A now.
Even beyond that, like the other 7, and again, the odds that Bazana and Manzardo and Kafis and who else did I mention? And Arias are DeLauder are all
Juan Brito
are all having, but there's a lot of talent there in that group of guys we're talking about.
Correct.
All high picks and good talented players.
I mean, this is what, like, the thing that opened my eyes was the spring breakout game that they do.
Yeah, sure.
Toward the end of spring training now, and Cleveland's lineup was loaded. All left-handed hitters or switch hitters.
Yeah.
But you saw it from Bazana to Kafis to Angel Henao, who looked like the best player on the field that day.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's been banged up this season. Jason Churio is a little further away, but we'll see
he's a real talent too.
His brother's team is here this week.
Yep.
The Brewers. Ralphie Velasquez. Like, some of these guys are a couple years away still, but
sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've flipped the script, and they still have to prove. Like, these kids have to prove that they can hit. That's an enormous hurdle here, but their top prospect list. I'm looking at the MLB pipeline right now, and the top 8 are all hitters. 9 of the top 10. So, I think we would have seen Juan Brito already if he wasn't hurt. It's unfortunate that he's hurt, that Henao's hurt, that DeLauder's been hurt. Bazana had a little bit of a slow start. He's been much better in May, but yeah, I agree with you. There is a path to the lineup being the strength of this team as soon as next year. I mean, it's not crazy. Like, if all those guys weren't hurt, like, I was thinking this in spring training that it could be by August, they could be the strength of the team. I think that's probably a little premature now, but I could also say that, like, do you have to start thinking about trading Stephen Kwan next winter?
Don't do this to me.
Like, this is the issue here.
You're right. You're right.
You have to build around something, and getting the timeline. This is the toughest part for any team that doesn't spend money on its payroll, is getting the timeline right, where you've got all this young talent together and they've got some experience. And, like, by the time Travis Bazan is a great major leaguer, how old's Jose Ramirez going to be?
That's fair.
Where's Stephen Kwan going to be playing?
There's no reason they can't sign Stephen Kwan. He's not going to get. I understand he wants more than they were willing to pay, and that's fair. But he's not going to get, because he's not a power hitter, he's not going to get that massive. He's not getting any kind of, like, 200. What's he getting?
Sure, he's getting north of 100, isn't he?
Okay, so pay him north of 100. Let's go.
Well, this team just doesn't. They've done that twice. Once with Jose Ramirez and once with Andres Jimenez. And Jimenez, they dumped 9/10 of it, which, fine.
But Kwan has showed since the moment he came to the big leagues, he's a good hitter.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think he's absolutely a guy you'd want to build around for a million reasons. He's so well-rounded. He's everything you'd want.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to just be a Debbie Downer here. And
No, I
I
get
don't
it.
even want.
Being
I
realistic.
wrote a mailbag for the Athletic today, and
Yeah.
someone asked about Quan and contracts, and I said I refuse to even start dreaming up the scenarios. But he's only got 2 more years of control after this one, and that's typically when the team starts testing the trade waters if they don't think they can keep you. Anyway, I'm with you. There's a lot of young, intriguing minor league hitting talent that should be arriving within the next 2 months to 3 years. And while you can't just assume that every good prospect is going to come up and thrive, you at least see the vision. You see, like they're, and that's why it's also imperative that you get answers. Like, is Arias a legitimate guy who you want to keep here? Is Martinez a guy you want to keep here? Is Nolan Jones a guy who can be more than just a metrics darling? And you have to get those answers before the Kafises arrive and steal some playing time and chase the lauder and on and on.
It's funny because you mentioned the website Baseball Savant before the show, and I just brought up Gabriel Arias, as you mentioned, and you look at his numbers are pretty bad. Like, his hard hit percentage is not good. His whiff percentage is hideous. His chase percentage is hideous. And yet he's put up good numbers. It's hard to wrap your head around because his line on where he ranks percentile wise, like for most things, he's 40% or worse. And like I said, he is in the second, he has a 38% whiff percentage, a 39.5 chase percentage. These are hideous. They're not just bad or average. They're about as bad as it gets.
His metrics are pretty similar from last season. There's some tweaks he's made, like the walk rate is a bit better. The strikeout rate is definitely better. And those things help.
Yeah.
It's why I struggle to fully get on board. I think there's, like, if he's your shortstop and he's playing great defense and he's doing somewhere in the middle of what we were accustomed to the last couple of years and what he's doing this year at the plate, I think you take that. Like, if you can stick him in the 9 spot in your 100%. Order, and like, you'd be thrilled with that.
And again, especially because he's a type of player that is going to be a hot and cold player, right? He's going to look really good when he's hot. He's going to look really bad when he's cold. And if you have a really good lineup and he's batting 7, 8, 9, you live with that. It's fine.
They've got a lot of guys like that, though. Like, I want to say the same thing about Bo Naylor. Well, if he's your number 9 hitter and you can get 15 home runs,
right? And I can understand why fans don't want to buy into all these prospects we're talking about, because they've heard about prospects a lot the last few years. They don't come up, or they haven't performed. I do think guys like Manzardo, who is performing, guys like Bazana, DeLauder, these are higher level, even Kafis are higher level prospects than some of the other guys, especially when it comes to like some power potential and just.
This isn't us like dreaming that Bradley Zimmer turns into a Hall of Famer.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see. All right. I want to get to the folks' comments here in just a second, but first I want to talk about Buckeye State Credit Union. If you are unfamiliar with Buckeye State Credit Union, let me introduce you to the financial friend you didn't know you needed until now. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local brand that offers a wide range of products, from checking accounts to home equity lines of credit and auto loans. They have some of the lowest rates around that are committed to serving Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland location is in Shaker Heights, but there are 5 brick-and-mortar locations across the state. Buckeye State Credit Union is here to help make your life easier. They make banking more convenient, always putting the customer first, so you leave feeling cared for, valued, and respected. Connect, simply, and adapt. These are the core values that make Buckeye State Credit Union the right choice for you. For more information, head to buckeyecu.org. That's buckeyecu.org. Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified. All right, Zach, let's get to the fans' questions and comments here. And we'll head out of here. I'm not going to read the Cavs stuff, folks. Sorry. Let's see. Richard K. It is tough to follow Cleveland sports. I've been doing it since '62. Thank God for the 2016 NBA championship. That was a great summer. I know the Guardians, the Indians at the time lost, but that was about as fun a summer as you could possibly have. Summer into fall, wouldn't you say?
It was like a fever dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was as bizarre as it was thrilling. I don't know. It just didn't seem real. I remember in 2014, I did like a 10-part series on Cleveland pro major sports reaching 50 years without a title.
Yeah.
And I'm a reasonably optimistic person, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I also feel like I understand the plight of the Cleveland fan.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that 10-part series was depressing. It was and it was, I remember just asking fans like why they stick with it and talking to all these athletes from over the years and then 2 years later, it was like, when a hitter's like 0 for 40 and you're like, well, he's due. And then naturally he goes like 10 for his next 12.
Yeah.
That's what that felt like. It felt like, like Cleveland was due and it was just here's everything at once.
Yeah. Except for the Browns, of course.
Yeah. Well, they got a parade too, just for a different reason.
Oh, God. Robert says, time to look for a new owner who wants to win and actually keep a team together and spend money. Well, there will be a new owner soon. Any updates on that, by the way?
No, I need to check on that.
Yeah. Typical Gamer says 2017 Cleveland Indians still the most disappointing team in Cleveland sports history, but the Cavs team is a close second. I want more than just one championship in 50 years. Man, we deserve way more.
It's an interesting comparison. I mean, that 2017, like, you think about what will you remember about this Cavs team aside from what might happen next, but like the 15-0 start, probably, right?
It's hard to wrap my head around thinking about the regular season right now, but yes.
I say that just
of the start. Yes.
The 17 team was underperforming for a couple months and then rattled off 22 wins in a row. And even after that, also then they finished like 35-4 or something crazy. Looked like they couldn't be stopped. They were the favorites to win the World Series and then obviously collapsed against the Yankees. So yeah, I mean, it's super talented teams that you felt it was their time and just crumbling in the worst moments.
Yeah, I mean, is it more disappointing than, the 2 World Series losses? Or is it at least you got to the World Series? Well, I mean, 3 World Series losses.
I think once you get to a game 7 and you lose, you're not. 16 was maybe a little different just because that team was on fumes. Like 97, no one's like, hey, at least they made it.
Right. Yeah.
Beat the Marlins. You had the lead in the 9th inning. There's no excuse. Yeah. The 17 team, I think it's more just that team was a machine.
Yeah.
That team had it, like, statistically was one of the best starting rotations ever. The bullpen, you had Andrew Miller and Cody Allen and Brian Shaw all at their peaks. The lineup, you had Encarnacion and Lindor and Ramirez and Jay Bruce and Michael Brantley came back, and it was loaded. That team was absolutely loaded and just crapped the bed at the worst time.
I wasn't here in the 90s and early 2000s when the team was really good, but that winning streak, those 3 weeks, was the most excitement, not surprisingly, I've ever seen here for regular season baseball. Like, everybody was living, like, even the super casuals like Dustin who don't really care much about baseball, like, they were locked in. Everybody, because that was so historic and so fun. It felt like they would never lose a game again. That's why the way they lost in the playoffs was so startling.
Yeah, I think there's a difference, right, between if you get to the World Series and lose, and if you're the favorite and you just choke, you fumble it early.
Well, I remember the 2001 Mariners.
Yeah. Who almost lost to Cleveland in the opening round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Wright Thompson with ESPN. Like, he's one of my idols in this business and someone I've admired for a long time. And I remember walking into Cleveland's clubhouse. I think they had won 14 or 15 in a row at that point. And Wright Thompson is standing there. And I'm like, what are you doing covering the Cleveland Indians? And that's how big of a story it was. Yeah. He was just going to stick with them until they finally lost a game. And I remember, so I got to like shadow him for a week. It was incredible. And I'm sure he never, this guy
Oh, he
writes
definitely
about Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, and
he remembers.
here he is following Greg Allen out of the ballpark one night.
Greg Allen. Richard K., the most disappointing Cleveland Indians team is 95, the best Indians team ever assembled. Typical gamer responds and says, yeah, but I wasn't alive in the 90s. Okay. I don't know. That 95 team was obviously incredible.
That team was brand new to it. I mean,
Yeah.
if they would have won, if they would have beaten the Braves, it would have just capped what I think is the perfect season, and the perfect story. You know, first full year in that ballpark. Obviously, the strike ended it the year before. But like, that's the one time where I think it's okay. That maybe 16, where it's like, okay, you were happy to be there. Because they came home, they lost the World Series and came home and got a parade. So that never happens. But that shows just after 41 years of misery, how excited people were about that team.
Yeah.
Also, the strike zone was a joke.
Oh God, in those days it was crazy. Richard says, "Why did the Guardians trade Josh Naylor? We've been through this. It was a big mistake to trade Josh Naylor. A big mistake. You traded the guy because he was going to walk. And listen, who the hell knows? Maybe at some point Slade Ciccone will be a really good pitcher for this team. It's certainly possible he was a high draft pick. I think we said this consistently. I would rather have let Josh Naylor walk than make that trade and have him instead of Santana.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to get anything they could for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he and the front office saw eye to eye on much.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think
it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, like I'm with you. Like, I would have kept him. I never, even from the start, I didn't really understand the Santana signing. Thought, if anything, just leave that spot open and let Manzardo play first, and you know, let Noel DH, or you're gonna get David Fry back to DH. You know, I like, there are certain things about Santana I like. Like, I'm not writing him off quite yet, but yeah, that swap always seemed like it was going to be a downgrade.
Yeah. Jordan says Kwan is arguably the MVP. We love Stephen Kwan. There's no argument for him being the MVP right now.
Of the team or the league?
Oh, of the team. I thought he was saying the MVP of the league. Of the team, sure. He is the MVP of the team.
He could absolutely finish top 10 in MVP voting.
Absolutely. But right now, there's no debate who the MVP. I mean, Aaron Judge is the MVP for whatever that's worth, which is worth nothing in this May 12th. But there's no debate as to who. There's nobody even close to him right now. Let's see. Rusty says right field, catcher, shortstop, automatic outs, need to get a legit right fielder. Not fair, not unfair. And too much torque. Starting pitching doing well, just need the bats to wake up. That's a big just need. All right, Zach, final thought of the day. What do you got? Anything?
You know, there is I know the Brewers are here, and then they go to Cincinnati, so you'll get Terry Francona Fest all weekend, and then a trip to Minnesota. But I can't stop thinking about a stretch that's coming up, and we'll talk about it more next week. But they've got 4 in Detroit Memorial Day weekend, and then the Dodgers come to town for 3. And if you ever want to know how you stack up against the best, I think those are the 2 best. That's the best team in each league at the moment, and that's going to be really tough. So, you know, the comment you just read, you need the bats to wake up. Yeah, you do, in time for those 2 series.
And then, by the way, after the Dodgers, you play 3 with the Angels, but then you have a 3-game series in New York against the Yankees. So that's a stretch of 10 games, 10 out of 13 games where you're playing 3 of the best teams right now. Pitching matchups this week for the home series against the Brewers. Tonight, 6:10, Ben Lively and Freddie Peralta. Peralta obviously is excellent, but he he got pulled early from his last start. Tomorrow, 6:10, Logan Allen and Quinn Priester. And Wednesday at 1:10, Gavin Williams. It says Jose Quintana on ESPN. You said, you heard last night, that's TBD for the Brewers. Brandon Woodruff, who hasn't pitched since 2023, might make his first start in a year and a half on Wednesday. So that's possible. And as you said, they go to Cincinnati after that. So they'll miss Hunter Green because he just went on the injured list. All right, Zach, good stuff today. Thanks to all the fans who joined us today. Thanks everybody watching and listening. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Obviously, follow Jack. I was about to call you Jack. Follow Zach at The Athletic. What do you got coming out this week? Anything of note?
It's been a treat being here on the bullpen with you. Yeah.
So is it it's a Jason Lloyd week where you might write an article, you might not, who knows?
You mean a Jason Lloyd month?
The Jason Lloyd month. Jason Lloyd month. All right, folks. And I'm going to have Joe Schobert on my podcast. I haven't spoken to Joe in a while. Looking forward to that. He'll be on live with me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And that's it for now. We'll talk to you all next time right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. I am not on UCSS today. I'll be out tomorrow.